also included what I've been calling outstanding synths in the claims. Those are synths that are held in Thor wallets that were not part of the savers. There were just a few. I think the total was just a few $100K worth of extra things, and we just want to get that all resolved so that there's no kind of THORFi folks left stranded there. In the THORFi Unwind channel, I've documented the process for how I calculated all of that. So if you're a data wonk and want to validate that, go right ahead. Appreciate some feedback there. I know Multipartite was looking at that, which is awesome. So yeah, just wanted to give folks an update on that front. For affected savers and lenders, nothing has changed. So just the inclusion of the outstanding synths is the only modification there. All right, moving through the agenda here. So yeah, update on Prop 6. So phase 0, nodes voted for the emission curve to be increased. So over the next week or so, we'll start to see what impact that drives. And yeah, looking forward to seeing some analysis around that as we move through phase 0. And then, Aaluxx, do you want to give folks an update on phase 1 and where we're at and where we're headed?
Just real quick, just dwelling on the emissions curve real quick. So just explaining what that is exactly. So the emissions curve is basically the setting that says how much block rewards come from the reserve. So it was 8 and now it's 10,000. So we basically almost completely eliminated block rewards. You can't eliminate them completely because there's still some amount that comes out of the reserve. I believe it went down from 25,000 rune a day to around 2 rune a day. So essentially that means block rewards are gone and all rewards for LPs, validators only come from liquidity fees from swaps. So the network has basically completely removed any kind of inflation from any sources from the reserve. So the reserve is not emitting any rune and not selling any into the liquidity pools since the vote passed yesterday, I believe.
Yeah, and I'd like to add something there because it might seem that 25,000 rune right now is not that much, right? It's like what, $35,000. The important part is 2 things. Like some people like to compare rune inflation and say, look, other ecosystems have higher inflation numbers. Why are you focusing on this here? Well, there's 2 reasons. Number one is those inflation numbers are typically staking inflation numbers and auto-compounded. None of that inflation is typically making it directly a sell pressure into pools. So if you look at Ethereum staking rewards, well, it just goes to the ETH stakers and it's locked and it's not being sold. So the insta selling part is what made this a bit more difficult. And yes, it might look harmless right now, perhaps $35,000 a day. But if you saw rune at $10, that's 10 times this, or 8 times this. We're talking about almost $100 million per year at rune $10. So what we're doing with increasing the emission curve now, albeit the effect seems smaller, is that we are capping upside for new investors. We're making rune investable today. As rune keeps growing, you don't have this huge sell wall growing and growing as well every day, putting downward pressure on the token. So I think that's part of the relevancy of this. Again, in the short term, even for nodes, it's not that big of a deal because the smaller the room price, the smaller the effect to every player. But here we're kind of opening up the ceiling of the system, and that's what we need to do. Again, we need a healthy tokenomic system, and that's what we're doing with just this small change. So I just wanted to give more detail on why this was so important.
Yeah, awesome. Really appreciate the specifics there and why those decisions were made. Sometimes I forget that not everybody has the same context, so that's great to make sure we're communicating that. So yeah, where are we at with the TCY implementation and some of the DLP compromises that folks rallied around last week?
Yeah, so I'll start with the DLPs first. We sent out a draft proposal, or rather the proposal implementation plan, right? Like what we proposed, the notes approved. How do we plan to go about it in more details? And there was pushback, rightly so, by DLPs, as they only had a very short time to be exposed to room price positive price action to make their leverage positions go back to more manageable levels. So they rightly say, we did sign up for synth leverage, and we understand that leverage has harmed us now with synth down, but at least we expected that leverage was not going to be taken away all of a sudden, right? So what we changed is that instead of giving them 30 days from the version where TCY is launched to be deleveraged, we're keeping the leverage on. And essentially, since the reserve will never be withdrawing those synths, realizing the loss from our side, the only person with the power to realize the loss for the LPs is themselves, choosing whenever they want to exit or if they want to stay on. Now, it's important to note a few things. Number one is we cannot have people add to those highly leveraged pools because they would enter at this leverage point and dilute the leverage for those that already ate the losses on the way down. So for these large pools with a lot of synths, we will have to turn down LP ads. And this is the way it makes sense for the LPs. Now that there's a few consequences there. Of course, we will have to find other ways to make the pools act deeper or act more efficiently with a few changes we have in mind for the future. So like capital efficiency is now more important than ever. And that's something that will come up in the next few weeks and months as we design stuff for this end. Another consequence that I don't dislike is that now THORChain essentially has two types of reserves: in-kind reserves of BTC, ETH, AVAX, all of these tokens, and liquidity reserves. So the liquidity reserves are already, it's what was used to be POL, and that's always been dual-sided, and it's leverage as well together with DLPs. So when DLPs go up, so will the POL. But this other part of the reserve, the seed reserve, is much more resilient or insensitive to room price pressure. So essentially, THORChain has two types of reserves: in kind and dual LP. Finally, this really benefits DLPs at almost no harm to any of the other players. It's a little bit taxing on the protocol, given that if we go back, room to $5 or $6, not a lot of that will go to the synth reserve. Some to the POL reserve, but not to the synth reserve. So the protocol is the one foregoing a bit of the upside in the reserve side, but I think it's okay, since essentially these synths is what's kind of backing the future payback of TCY holders. So people started saying on Twitter, like, "Oh, why are you making this better for them? What about us?" Well, it didn't make it any worse for any of the players, just benefit for the LPs pretty much. So we can, Orion or FamiliarCow, if you want to mention anything on this topic before we go to TCY. I also wanted to thank Pluto and FamiliarCow also for being very voicing DLPs and their concerns, as that helped put the North Star on this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the detail there. Also, just the fact that we have had a healthy debate around how all of the stakeholders, can get a better deal, I think is an important part of this process. The thing that I just wanted to kind of highlight here that you mentioned and make sure that folks understand. So there's the current POL and then the protocol holding the assets, additional assets in the pools in order to make the TCY holders whole. I think like that's an important, just an important distinction here, and like will lead to better outcomes for all of the participants, nodes, LPs, THORFi claim holders, and rune holders. There's been a lot of discussion around how to handle all of that and the various claims on it, but I think ultimately that makes the most sense here. Cool. So yeah.
It's also important to mention, and it's something you and me discussed earlier today, that now like every single player in the ecosystem is focused on the same things and rowing in the same directions. We have essentially rune holders and DLPs. They benefit from rune price action. We've got TCY holders that focus on volume growth and nodes who like both. So essentially, before with THORFi, there was a lot of PvP action, right? Like there was some gain in spite of another player, and all of these created a community that was kind of like sometimes even pitted against each other. And I think what is very neat about this and how the proposal ended with the implementation plan as it is now is that everybody's geared towards the same things and we all benefit from the same outcomes. So I think that's pretty neat, and a unified community I think is very important to get through all of this.
Yeah, 100%. So what's the latest with the TCY implementation?
Yeah, we yesterday evening we sent the first merge request. It includes a lot of parts about the TCY fund module and the claiming module and how Rune moves from the system income into the module to TCY holders, back to the claiming module, all of that. There's still a few things to do for the TCY Rune pool and the claiming memos and handlers to have like all of the systems set up. There's also a few decisions to be made as to, minutia, right? Like how many decimals should TCY have? How many rune should the TCY fund pay out? Like we had an initial proposal, but it's something that we should also discuss and kind of decide. But it's just functional minutia. There's a little thing that we can make more efficient. This has been essentially take two for us on Maya. And like if you look at the code for Maya token, this is already a bit more efficient. What we did last week with we did that 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So the second pass is good, and it's been pretty cool to kind of have a second go at it. But we also found another thing we can do to make it more efficient, especially since THORChain has just more addresses to handle and more balances. So we had an idea yesterday. We haven't implemented it yet. We wanted to see if 9Realms agreed with the diagnosis and the prescription. It seems you guys do. So we'll be doing that essentially instead of going and querying all the THORChain accounts and returning the TCY balances to then determine how much payout each person gets. We will keep a KV store tracking who holds TCY. So that and their balances, so that we don't have to keep recalculating these every day. Rather, we just update it with what's going on in the network. And when we see that an address has zeroed out, we take it out. When someone sends TCY from one address to another, that new address goes into the KV store, and we start tracking it. That way, we could reduce how many wallets we're tracking from like 100,000 to just around 10,000 initially. So that efficiency improvement, I think, will be pretty good. But these are just like little details in the code that we have to think about. But yeah, I think that won't be the limiting factor, I think. I'm worrying more about the memos and handlers, because those for the claiming, because those just take a little bit more time as they affect, more tests and stuff like that. But yeah, I think just needs work.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to dig into the implementation details of it. One thing I wanted to highlight for affected THORFi users around how they will end up claiming the TCY. So there will be a memo that you will need to broadcast from your L1 address in order to register a THORChain address for your TCY distribution. There will be more details and specifics around how to accomplish that. We'll make sure there's a dedicated front end to support that as well. But just wanted to make sure that folks understand that you're going to need to, there will be action required on your part in order to claim the TCY to a THORChain address in the future. That also ties into another mechanic that I think FamiliarCow came up with last week or the week before around what to do with unclaimed TCY. Cow, I don't know if you want to dive into that a little bit, or if I should just give a quick summary.
Yeah, I can quickly just describe the mechanic I was mentioning, and Aaluxx can describe how it's being implemented, because I like maybe those two diverge in some way. But my suggestion was to put all of the TCY into a module and yield. So it sits in that module until someone comes and claims it by basically claiming it with their relevant memo from their L1 address, which is like the address that you entered savers in or took a loan out on. And before it's claimed, all of the yield that's claimed by that module is used to buy back TCY from the TCY pool. So essentially not penalizing this participants in the system for those who don't claim their TCY. Until the TCY is claimed, the yield just continually goes to buying back more TCY, which creates more yield to buy back more TCY. So that's the mechanics that I think it just aligns everyone the best and says, like, yeah, if you claim, then you get your yield from whenever it is you claim your TCY, and if if your keys are lost and you never claim, then your yield is used to help give value back to those who did claim. So it seems to me like it's the most fair system, and it also creates some kind of yield mechanism where we're using that yield to buy, where the protocol is buying back TCY and creating liquidity on the TCY market. So yeah, how does is that how it's implemented? Or
Yeah. And first off, I want to say it was a brilliant idea. Really brilliant. So yeah, essentially, this has a lot of consequences. First off, like FamiliarCow ended up saying, we have a constant bid on TCY. And it's not only a constant bid, it increases with time, since it will keep accruing more and more TCY, and it increases with with volume. So you have a two hit. Your TCY is worth more when there's more volume, but also TCY is getting bought up faster when there's more volume. So that's like a double whammy effect on the TCY. Again, we really want, I want to really emphasize that people that are thinking, TCY is this thing where I'll get paid back in 60 years. That's not the point. The point is this is a growth instrument that is worth the net present value of all future cash flows, right? So that gives it value today, and that value today is what's giving you the liquidity you need in case you really need to exit quickly. And that value will increase if people trust THORChain more, the volumes keep growing, and people are more and more certain that the payouts will increase. So this mechanic is awesome because it highlights all of this, and it really puts this in with Nitro, essentially. How we implemented is exactly how you mentioned, FamiliarCow, in two modules. There is a case to put it in one module, but I voiced against it. So it right now the implementation is two modules, like you suggested. And essentially, also there's another thing that's going into the claiming module, which is the fees from the Rune TCY pool. We don't want to pay out fees to LPs in that pool because we don't want many LPs there. Why don't we want many LPs there? Because we don't want this pool to be super deep, such that it is a significant amount of TVL, because that would mean some reflexivity between TCY and Rune. We don't want that. So the TCY Rune fees are also paid in Rune to the claiming module, so that the claiming module uses those fees to buy back more TCY. So like we're doing what you said, and then looking of
even smarter. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Also, there's a great
yeah,
question in the comments, real quick. Sorry, this is probably a good place to say this. There's someone asking. So there's a lot of scams, people taking advantage of people that are scared. What are the official channels of communication for who to trust and where to get updates? This dev Discord and the THORChain official, quote unquote official Twitter handle are the two spots where I would be looking. Anyone that's outside of that, like anyone that's not part of the team, just there will be like people going around and just like putting out dashboards which could be incorrect or trying to get you to connect your wallet to things. Just be extremely cautious about that. There will be plenty of notice when like the TCY claiming is going live. Then after that, there's no action you have to take because you just hold your TCY, right? So there will be plenty of notice in this Discord. It won't be like a surprise. There's no rush to claim. You should just be cautious as you would be with any other place where you connect your wallet. And it'll probably be a brand new front end, and it will be like wait till there's confirmation from multiple channels, like on this Discord, on the THORChain Twitter account, from community members. Like it's not going to be like you need to be the first guy to connect your wallet to something. And obviously you should make sure to keep your funds secure in that way, and your wallet OPSEC good.
Yeah, it's I want to emphasize the no rush. You'll have years to claim. And the only thing you miss out by claiming earlier is a few cents of the payouts of the days that you took to claim. But there's absolutely no great benefit to being first. You have your allocation from the beginning. You're getting the same allocation whenever you claim. So people take it easy, analyze, test, and ask also. So people are here to help you too in the community. Just be sure those are trustworthy community members, and you get more than one source.
Yep, and I think they're likely, just because of the nature of how THORChain works. There's probably at least 1 to 2 week lead up period where it's like, we know that TCY is getting merged in this version, and that version is being tested right now, and it'll be like just released next week, as an example, right? So like it's not going to be like a surprise thing where it's like, oh yeah, overnight like it just gets spun up. Like there will be some build up of like, this is when TCY is going live, and this is the next version that it'll be cut in. So that's all happening right now, and you'll see it come out of the pipe a little bit. Like we don't just do things by surprise.
Well, another thing that I like about the claiming module and what you suggested, FamiliarCow, again, brilliant, is that as the protocol keeps buying back more and more TCY, like people say, oh, but it's 10% forever. Yes, but once the protocol owns 30% of TCY, it can choose to take that yield and give it back to nodes instead. Now, instead of keeping buying more TCY, you pay it to nodes, or you burn it, right? So there's many things that we can do once the claiming module has accumulated a lot of TCY, and we can choose what to do with that. Since it doesn't belong to the users, that TCY was bought, now it belongs to the protocol. You can choose what to do with it. Again, if you have your TCY unit, that will never get diluted. You won't be getting any less swap fees. That's not what's happening with this. Rather, what now the TCY, the protocol owns in TCY, you can choose what to do with it. Just like you, as a TCY holder, can choose to, buy more TCY or keep it or sell it or whatever. So the protocol can do that with its allocation as well. So just wanted to mention that. And again, it was a pretty good idea, and we were happy to run with it.
Awesome. You guys ready to move on to some Q&A? It looks like John, thanks for being patient here. I'll bring you up. John, I just accepted your request. Let's see if you...
Yeah, or throw questions in the chat too.
Hey, sorry, you guys did answer my question just a second ago, so I think that we're good.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
There's a question from Shock Rocket. Thoughts on making swap fees slightly higher for the TCY pool? We want that market to be efficient. Like, yes, we want to charge fees for it and get those fees to buy back TCY, and it shouldn't be free since it's also taking some computational cost and all of that. But the higher fees you charge, the more inefficient the market is, and we really want to not have many barriers from sellers getting their liquidity back at the price that they chose, and buyers, we don't want to give them reasons not to buy. So I would caution against that. Of course, more fees always sounds very nice on paper, but there's always an indirect relationship with volume and liquidity. So yeah. Lush, you ask, how does the TCY pool stay shallow? We won't pay out fees to the LPs. So because we're not paying fees to the LPs, anybody doing LP is doing so out of their goodness of their heart, because there will be impermanent loss because TCY and Rune won't always maintain the same ratio. So you're guaranteed to have less than HODL value if you add to the liquidity. So 9grams, when they add the seed of the pool, they're not doing it with a profit incentive or profit motive, sorry, rather than doing it literally to keep the lanes open of the market. And some other person can also LP because they just want to help have the market be deeper and so whatnot. But the depth of the market will mainly be driven by TCY price, as very few people will be willing to add LP for no fees. So now the question is, okay, there are fees charged. They're not being kept by the LPs of the pool. So where it goes? Well, it goes back to the claiming module to use to buy more TCY to make the system, again, virtuously bidding on TCY price. Is there any appetite to use some of the debt fund to buy TCY and therefore have a source of yield for the debt fund? In the proposal, it's the treasury will be buying around $5 million of TCY over the first 3 months of the market, so that TCY will be held by the treasury.
Hey, sorry to interrupt one more time. I have another question. You mind?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure I understand what you guys are talking about. You're saying if somebody does not claim their TCY, it's just instead of getting Rune deposited from the swap fees, it's just going to buy more TCY and add it to their account?
No. So if you have one TCY, you'll still be claiming one TCY. Just the question is, we cannot send you the Rune because you haven't claimed it. So what do we do with that? So what we're doing is some of those TCY claimers are actually dead keys, people that added to savers, lost their wallet, whatever. So we're using that Rune to buy back TCY and constantly bid on the market. Remember, your interest with TCY is twofold: getting paid and having TCY price up. So what we're doing by using the claiming module revenue this way is to work on the latter. Bidding constantly on the TCY market. This constant bid, of course, can be front run by investors, which is what we want. And when you claim, TCY will be at a healthy price, hopefully, and you can either keep it or sell it when you claim.
So if someone doesn't claim their TCY right away, if they wait a year or something like that, they're basically missing out on all of that revenue. They're only able to collect the revenue if they have claimed it. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you would essentially lose in 1 year around 1 cent 1.5 cents over a year of not having claimed. The effect of the TCY being bid will be most likely more than 1.5 cents in TCY price. So you have a larger interest in the short term that the TCY is being bought up for the price and bid for the price than the payout, if you do the math. So it's actually in your interest, even if you didn't claim the room, you didn't get the room payout, it's in your interest that the protocol is doing it, because the price of TCY will more likely have increased more in the short term than the payout you missed out on. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
It's a question from Steve. Like, what data are we looking at to make a decision whether to raise the burn? I mean, I could go into that just a little bit. So obviously, removing block rewards is a big step, and changing, like, I just want to caution against changing too many levers at once and not having enough time to analyze the effects of the decisions that were made. Like, we shouldn't be changing too many things just all at once just because we want to. Like, we should be checking our assumptions and making sure that what we're doing is working, making sure that the nodes are getting enough yield, making sure that the protocol is sustainable enough before saying, yeah, let's then. So now that we've decreased the income everyone's getting, let's further burn more. Just making both those decisions right now just seems like too much to make all at once and not really be able to be informed on like how it affects all the actors in the protocol. So yeah, I'm just trying to caution against moving too quickly on these things. Like, it's not something we can easily walk back with a vote for sure, but that's not something we want to have to do all the time. So let's just see. Let's chill. Let's monitor the effects of like what are node yields looking like, what are LP yields looking like for the next couple of weeks. Like, we need to see what the effect is. Is there like, and Rune price is not necessarily like, this is not the only thing that's happening like in the Rune market. So it's like just looking at the price is not going to tell the full story. And like we definitely need to keep an eye on all the yields, like how sustainable all the different areas of the protocol are. Like, making too many changes at once is just going to put us into a corner that is difficult to back out of if we do the wrong thing. So yeah, keep an eye. Like, I encourage everyone to keep an eye on how the protocol is performing with block reward. Like, if you're with block rewards gone, if you're a bond provider, like, take note of like of what your current income is now compared to last week, compared to the week before, and those are the changes that are being made right now. So it's like doing too much at once is just a recipe to break something when, and self-own ourselves. So just, let's move with a little caution here about changing too many economic parameters.
100%. And like, we need to take like the things I want to keep track of, like you said, no yield, but also like, are we getting new bond providers? It's not only sufficient that we're not losing, but that there's appetite to have more. Also, burning would take away more node yield, which is already harmed by the emissions curve. So some nodes will have to start catching up and switching to more efficient setups, right? From cloud to bare metal, or switching providers, looking for multi-node setups to share the cost among more than one validator, stuff like this. So like, we have also to give them time to be more efficient. We cannot just kind of like double slap them and expect them to stay around. So yeah, there's a lot of data that needs to be tracked, and like FamiliarCow says, just a few days is not enough because there's many variables, right? This is multivariate, so we need to be able to isolate what's really going on, and then decide from there, and decide not only quickly. It will probably be like, guys, we would like to, the data looks good, we might want to double the burn, but we'll do it in a month. Like, what do you guys think? Discourse, talk with nodes, talk with rune holders, and decide. We don't want to be rash, 100%. The rashness is sometimes what made us make mistakes. So we want to move away from that and always have like a common front of stability, of analyzing things and taking wise decision with stakeholder feedback. That's where we want to be.
Yeah, 100%. Banish that chaos. Slam Bammer, what's up, man?
Hi. Yeah, thanks. Honestly, so I was one of the people quite vocal in the throughout the last few weeks on the side of the liquidity providers. And I'm really glad at the kind of middle line that you've been able to walk. I really appreciate, it was a balancing act between a lot of parties. And I just want to express sincere gratitude to Aaluxx, Nine Realms, and community members like Koitsu for. Yeah, I know you guys must have been through hell over the last few weeks. I know everyone was stressed, and yeah, I think you guys have done a really good job, all things considered. So yeah, thanks a lot for your efforts.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Awesome. So let's see. Any other questions outstanding?
Yeah, I brought back up John. I think he had another question.
Great.
Yeah, I do have another question. So, I want to know if the wallet providers, the guys who do the user interfaces, are there any of them that are like very eager to stay on top of these updates and create user interfaces for us to interact with these new protocols? Because I know if you're doing TCY, I'm sure that there's an entire interface that needs to be built for that. And I'm curious how much participation is there from different wallet providers, and if so, which ones are the most active?
Yeah, at this point, it looks like a new front end will be spun up just for this. Like, I think it's like unfair of us to ask, like for example, like THORSwap, asking THORSwap to say, hey, THORSwap, spin up a front end for this thing, even though you guys don't make any money off this. And like, there's no economic incentive for them to do so, right? So I think the best way forward is to spin up a completely independent front end for just TCY claims. And obviously, like, front ends can do that, and they likely will, but it'll likely be an independent place to claim TCY. Just because, like, just the way incentives are aligned in this ecosystem, like, THORSwap, they make their money on swap fees, and having either trying to force them to or ask them, like, if they do create a TCY interface, it'll be for the sake of their own users and from the goodness of their heart, rather than from like, yeah, we're gonna make money from swap fees, which is their business, right? So I think that the correct thing to do here is to spin up an independent front end where you can connect whatever wallet to and claim that way. Is that like, what do people think about that?
Yeah, I agree. There's also one component more though, just TCY holding. Like, you already claimed it, it's in your key store or wallet, and just like seeing it in your wallet and seeing your rune increase. I think that will more likely than not be integrated by many interfaces. That's an easy ask. They just have to essentially query balances for one more token in your wallet. So like in our experience with Cacao and Maya token, like most wallets just support holding both. And maybe swapping also, like the one that will be most available is just holding. Then I think front ends like THORSwap will implement swapping, TCY and rune swapping. And lastly, the least support will be for claiming, which is why it will be important that there's a front end spun up just for that. That way we don't depend on whether UIs will support it or not.
But also, like, my 2 cents. TCY is a native rune asset, so that any wallet where you're currently holding rune will hold your TCY. So it's like, it's don't think of it as like our interface is going to support this or not. Like, it's already going to be supported by any interface that currently has like a rune integration where you could self-custody your rune. It's just going to go in your Thor address. So you'll be able to send it to your XD5, Multisig, Ledger, like wherever you're currently holding your rune. That's the address where you'll be able to hold your TCY without the interface needing to do anything except maybe just know that it's holding another asset besides rune, but it'll still be in that address.
Yeah, they just have to like support the little logo of the coin and like the name and stuff like that. It's a very easy lift for anyone that supports Rune already, like you say. So I think most interfaces, if not all, will pretty quickly have TCY holding. Some will have TCY swapping, and few or none, except the one we kind of expedite, will have TCY claiming. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I think we're coming up on 45 minutes here. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up unless there's any other outstanding questions. Let's just check. Shock Rocket's asking about the emission curve and related to dev fund underfunded. That's just not something that has really been considered at this point. We just want to keep moving with the THORFi unwind stuff. Maybe that can get revisited and campaigned for in the future.
Yeah, and I would like to add there, like just like anybody else, the dev fund and treasury have Rune, and they benefit now more from that Rune appreciating from this low point than the cash flow of 5%. So like the dev fund is still there. It's now a bit smaller because of emissions. That's okay. And right now, let's all just focus on having a more healthy ecosystem first. And yeah, once things are said and done, the dust settles. It's a happy problem to have that we now can worry about these things later.
Yeah, thanks for that. So just wanted to give folks a heads up around what to expect next. So at this point, work is being done on phase 1. That's the TCY implementation and DLP updates. There will be a call for a node vote, once that approaches completion, in order to kind of adopt the implementation of phase 1, and then we'll continue from there. So node operators, stay tuned for that, and then we'll kind of progress phase by phase, as we build community support around the implementation as we move forward here. So that's kind of the next piece on the horizon. And then Aaluxx and I will continue to keep people up to date in terms of where we're at with these Discord stages. I think we'll try to do them weekly. Thanks everybody for hopping on. And if you have additional questions, I'll hang out in the thread here and just keep answering them until folks are satisfied.
Thanks, Orion. And big thank you to Aaluxx for organizing this and, really being the lead behind, Prop 6 and all the implementation that's happening right now. And thanks to all the community feedback, which we've obviously been taking into consideration while designing this. So this will be uploaded to the RSS feed. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. So if you can't make these live spaces, they'll always be recorded. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. See you next week.